What's going on? Legacy hack, folks. Love this topic. Infinite banking, family banking with the two Wonder Boys, or Wonder Boys. I don't know. That sounds kind of weird to say, Jack, but I'm gonna roll with it anyway. Okay. Uh,
We're the Wonder Boys.
I guess I don't know where that came from. That just kind of came out. Wonder Twins. Okay, the Wonder Twins. All right. That's an '80s cartoon, Jack, that you have no idea about. You weren't even born in the '80s, and that's okay. All right.
Hmm.
God bless you.
That actually, it reminds me, my daughter now has these like three promises that they say every day at her classical school, and they are, I will learn the truth, I will do the good, I will love the beautiful. And I feel like having wonder at God's world and the things that we can learn. I like that twist on it for
Amen,
the
Jack.
Wonder Boys.
The Wonder Boys. I love it. I like that. Okay. Well, I'll roll with that right there. I'll roll with that. Well, so to our audience, I know Jack and I just had a little, conversation between each other, but back to our audience that, uh, you know, we welcome you guys out and we appreciate you guys being here. Um, we definitely want to take a little bit different twist on infinite banking, and we want to tie in actually the Bible. All right. So Jack and I both are Christians. We love Jesus. Yes, we do. We love Jesus. How about you? All right. So we hope that you do love Jesus. If you don't, you might want to get to know him. Highly recommend that. It'll change your life. It's changed my life. I know it's changed Jack's life. But we definitely feel that infinite banking is actually where that it might not say infinite banking or family banking inside the Bible. We definitely feel like that there are, principles in the Bible that definitely support what we're doing in this quest of infinite banking. So we want to educate you today. We want to kind of just open your eyes up to a couple things biblically um, that we feel pretty strongly about. And Jack's actually going to be leading the conversation today, and so I'm going to tip it over to Jack. So take it away, Jack.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. So Nelson Nash is the guy who wrote Becoming Your Own Banker, and I think we've referenced in past episodes. He was a super well-read man in his generation. He was in the forestry industry and had very long-term vision because he would see what it took to plant and grow and have timber that you can use. Like that's a long process. And yeah, he kind of applied that approach to infinite banking concept and our financial system at large. And really, like the foundational Bible verse that he brings up in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker, and built his philosophy around is from Proverbs 22:7. It says, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender," which is so interesting to me because this is the verse Dave Ramsey uses to kind of encourage people to not be in debt. And Nelson almost like takes it farther because he's really talking about like escaping financial slavery by becoming your own source of financing and not
Mm.
beholden to the bank's credit cards or lenders that Dave Ramsey wants us to avoid. But he's still acknowledging like we have a need for financing, and there's a more productive way to do that than to just use those saved banks to save up and spend cash. Um, and really to, yeah, like build our own pool of capital that we have more control over. And that's in the cash value of these permanent life insurance policies. Um, so yeah, like as I was reading that, it was just an interesting twist on like, man, I feel like Dave wouldn't be so heated around this topic if he actually sat down with Nelson at some point. But
I
yeah,
wonder if
anything come to mind for you?
Nelson. I mean, because Dave had to. Anyway, we're not going to get on the topic of Dave and Nelson. I mean, it would be interesting to have them excuse me, Nelson was still alive. Actually, have Nelson sit down with Dave and talk things through. I think that you know both both of them are wise dudes, but I do like that Nelson takes that verse and goes even a step further. Um, because here I was, for me personally, before I got introduced to infinite banking, I was probably on the side or in the camp that I didn't have any debts. I my house was paid for. I didn't have any credit card debt or anything like that. I thought debt was, of the devil, so to speak. And yet, as I started to get a better understanding of what the world of that I live in, that we all live in, that you finance everything, okay, and what
Can't
the
escape it.
yeah, no, you can't escape it. I mean, regardless, I mean, even if you say, oh, I did escape it, well, is your money in a bank? Yes, your money is in a bank. So guess what? That bank is making interest off of your money. So you didn't escape it. So don't
Yeah,
don't
by loaning it to others.
yeah, by loaning it out to others, they have made more money off of you. So you can't escape it. So don't think you can. But what I found is interesting is, and how I kind of got around that is, so what I'm doing is I'm actually, with this whole infinite banking thing, I'm actually taking control of the financing component of my life.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm taking control of that. I'm taking control of how cash flow is actually going about in and out of my own life. Well, the other side of that is, well, you're taking out a policy loan, Tyler, and you're going to have debt against your name. To a certain degree, yes, you're right. I mean, that's the only way I look at it. I mean, it is a loan, but it's against me. It's against my life, and I have a thing called a death benefit that, if if the policy's structured properly, that will always exceed the policy loans or whatever can never exceed the death benefit. Am I right, Jack? I mean,
Yep.
that's how it should work.
Yep.
And so, am I really in debt? No, I'm just borrowing against myself to control that financing piece and to pay that back into my own self. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm no longer the servant to the lender anymore. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
I've become the lender. God says actually in Deuteronomy that He wants His people to lend to many nations.
Yep.
He says
But
that in
you shall
Deuteronomy
not
28.
borrow.
Yeah, and you should not borrow. Well,
Yeah.
sorry. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of Jewish people are in the banking industry. So anyway,
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of like the very, very, very original command to go and be fruitful, multiply, have dominion. Like, yeah, I think stewardship of God's stuff and owning and having a exercising authority that we reflect from his authority, like is, um, yeah, it's huge. And I think like central to this strategy. It's about stewardship, responsibility, and yeah, with that, um, two other kind of verses that Nelson brings up that I think work together are one, like Galatians 5:22, the fruits of the spirit, and specifically self-control and patience are central to IBC, because Nash says that the greatest challenge with this strategy isn't the mechanics, it's human behavior. Because it does take time to capitalize a policy and see it become a substantial amount enough of cash value that you can do productive things with it. And yeah, it takes funding that out of your free cash flow that you budget and set aside each month. So that's a big part of it. And then I think also, which to bring in Unbridled story a little bit, all of the Unbridled companies fund 20% of their profits each year into life insurance policies on our owners and key employees. And that comes directly from Genesis 41, after Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams and saw there's going to be 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. Those 7 years of abundance were a key time to store up and be prepared for the bad times that were going to come. And we don't often have that clarity of foresight through interpretation of a dream of exactly what environment we're in, but the principle remains of, yeah, store up 1/5 so that you're prepared at any time for unbridled. It's cool. They'd been doing that for 10 plus years when COVID hit, and they're a corporate events company, had to cancel all these events and lost, I think, like 50 million of revenue in a week with those canceled events, but laid off very few people because they were prepared. Um, so
Wow,
that's
that's amazing. That's a
it's
great story
another
right there, Jack.
cool application. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
I
Go
think there's
ahead.
something too. Again, I've heard you say it yourself, Jack, that this is a little bit of a savings account, to a certain degree that you have, and whether that be that you want to have as an emergency fund, for what you need to store up, and you put it actually inside a life insurance policy. Why not? You can do that
Hmm.
because you can still access that if you need it. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, I think the principle of you know of that 1/5 of like what Joseph in that story, it's just wisdom, really, is all it
Yeah.
is.
Yep. Yeah. That's good. All right. Let's jump to another one. We both had kind of saw this verse come up and we're surprised by it because you got to read into it a little bit. But Proverbs 21:20 says, "Precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it." And what Nelson was getting at with this verse is really illustrating the difference between saving and spending, and talking about like where we build our capital. Um, in his case, inside a whole life policy, needs to align with biblical wisdom of storing value rather than just consuming everything. And
Mm,
um, yeah, and it also kind of brings to mind what we've talked about with the parable of talents or the minas. There's a little difference in those stories, but like the minimum requirement of the the workers who the master was setting over different amounts, 5 to 1, was that you at least like put this money with the bank and earn interest. Um,
yep.
so I think like where we are storing capital is vitally important, and the attributes of mutual life insurance carriers that have been around for over 200 years in a lot of cases um, make for a more wise place and more sound place to store capital than a bank, which I don't know how many people listen to this, but I think I was sharing the story last week of a guy who went into the bank to withdraw 20,000 and the bank had $50,000 like at their whole branch.
Wow.
Um, so it's just like, yeah, like I'd rather have my dollars backed by a life insurance carrier that is able to pay out every single death benefit on every single one of their policyholders at one time if everyone died at once. That
Yeah.
should never happen. But like that
Mm,
that type of stability and yeah, like soundness that really stems from Austrian economics of a focus on sound banking. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I think resonates a lot with this uh, yeah, this verse of precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling. Um, and yeah, somewhat, I think even the extra step of like needing a policy loan to take a policy loan to do something creates like a level of accountability of I can't just swipe a card to blow money on X purchase. Um, so yeah, that's what kind of comes to mind around those verses. But yeah, I'm curious to hear your take because it came up for you in a somewhat different context, I think.
Yeah. So when I was going back and forth with ChatGPT, my other brain, so to speak, I found that it talked about that same verse, and the quote unquote said, avoiding the Vanderbilt trap.
Hmm.
Okay. The Vanderbilt trap. And so the verse again is the wise store up choice food and olive oil, but the fool gulp theirs down. And it just talks about how, kind of from if we, I know we wear out these two families, bless their hearts. Okay. Bless their hearts. But, hey, look, you got to learn from somewhere. And it just happens to be this right here. But, the Rockefellers, what they did, technically what Rockefeller Jr. did, not actually Senior, but Rockefeller Jr. had the foresight to see down the road and being able to create more of a legacy of opportunity for his family versus the Vanderbilts built up a legacy of consumption. Okay. Where they would have elaborate parties, they would have build these elaborate homes. Okay. And it was just more of kind of this consumption mentality versus what the Rockefellers came up with for a legacy of opportunity. Where that if say someone in the family came up with a opportunity of a business or they needed education for something or some kind of philanthropic endeavor, then they were able to come to quote unquote the family bank, borrow against it, and there were governing rules around how that would be paid back, so that they'd actively refill and replenish the family bank, which is again what should happen. But at the end of the day, the Bible's real clear, that it consistently warns against squandering what has been entrusted to us. Okay. You cannot get away from the warnings of just squandering what you've been given, because like for me, when I was like 23, 24 years old, my great grandfather had an inheritance that was supposed to come to me.
Hmm.
Okay. It was about $50,000. Right. Now, to me at 23 and at that time, that was a lot of money. Still is a lot of money. I'm not going to sit there and say, I'll take $50,000 again. Right. Well, what's interesting that took place is so I went and did all this homework about what I was going to do with the $50,000. I I asked this financial advisor. He told me I should put in a Roth IRA, and then I talked to this real estate guy. They put it in real estate and so forth. Well, my mom and dad, thankfully, decided no, you're going to use this as your first down payment of your first house with your wife.
Hmm.
And so I kind of was upset. I'm just telling you straight up how it was, Jack. At 23, 24 years old, I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is my money, okay? Who's to say that you're going to keep me from doing what I want to do with the money?" This is just my mindset, okay? And mom and dad held their ground and said, "Nope, you go find a house, and we'll put $50,000 as a down payment to that house." Well, here's I'm going to complete this story because this is a good God story too. Okay, so literally, we found this house. Okay, had been sitting on the market for like almost a year. The price had come down, 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 down to where it was like maybe $110,000, a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, right? Just needed some, cosmetic stuff done to it. But because it came all the way down to about $110,000, we negotiated for it to be purchased somewhere around about a 105. Okay. So we already got 50% equity into the house because of that inheritance that we had. Well, we go, we do our thing, Amy and I, job stuff for about 5 years in that house. Interesting enough, this is right around the middle to late 2006. So right when uh, real estate was getting hot, okay, um, Amy and I, just by the leading of the Lord and us praying about it and seeking the Lord, said, let's actually move to Columbia and let's sell our house, move into an apartment. Well, Jack, we sold our
Wow.
house. We sold our house and we sold it. We bought it for $105,000. We sold it for $185,000,
Nice.
right? But I look back on that now as a 47-year-old and I say, thank you, Lord, that my mom and dad didn't let me take it because I would never have gotten that kind of return.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But because of my
And the
mindset
timing
of,
of it too, like
yeah,
it could have
exactly the
been
timing of it, I couldn't
no
have
return
predicted that.
too.
Yeah. Couldn't have
Yeah.
predicted any of that. But again, it just goes back to this whole entire thing of, look, don't squander the money, put it away. Yeah, I was going to try to make money, but I really didn't know I didn't know a lot. I didn't have enough guidance, have enough mentorship. But again, don't fall in the Vanderbilt trap. Avoid it.
Yep.
Don't squander it. If you get a lump sum, you know, sock it away. Put in a policy. You know.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, I could go off on that even more, but I know we got to keep moving on, Jack. Right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking of taking it home on that one. And I think like to, yeah, kind of give like wrapping thoughts on this, like the theme that runs through the whole Becoming Your Own Banker book is really like thinking differently about money and rejecting the world's borrow and consume mindset to align ourselves with financial thinking that has long-term principles and a personal control focus. And the verse that Nelson brings up for that is do not be conformed to this world, but be
Mm,
transformed by the renewal of your mind. And I think
yeah. Romans
that
12.
that's a process. Yep, Romans 12 too. And yeah, but it's one that's worth it. And I think just like the principle of being faithful in the little things, um, over and over and like with funding and growing a policy, it's like the the best opportunities with that don't come in year one. They come in year 10, year 15, year 20, in the death benefit that it leaves behind for your family when you pass. And um, yeah, I mean, we live in such a microwave Amazon generation that gets instant gratification. And this, yeah, product is not instant gratification whatsoever, but uh, creates a way of living and operating your finances that is very different from the world. So yeah, I think that's highlighted in the wisdom your parents gave and the wisdom Rockefeller Jr. used to set in motion a plan that preserved wealth for 7 generations now.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I
yeah.
really, Jack, just kind of cut in real quick. I really feel like that it's long term thinking versus short term thinking.
Hmm.
Okay. And, you know, we've got to have long term mentality, you know, when we approach this infinite banking thing. And because it's biblical, God says, let's gather things little by little. I mean,
Hmm.
he even told the children of Israel that he was not going to allow them to eradicate everything in the promised land, that he was going to allow them to little by little help them get all you know, the, the foreigner or people that were actually in the land out. The reason is because guess what? If they had eradicated everything at one time, well, it says the wild beasts and all the vegetation, everything would grow up and become too wilderness like, something like that.
Hmm.
And I feel like that having that long term mindset is really key, and it's biblical to what we're doing here. It's a stewardship
Yeah.
mindset as well. So yeah,
Yep. That's great. Thanks for bringing this topic to the forefront. Yeah, it's one that, I mean, it's cool to see like the yeah, the guy who came up what we talk about and teach to others and use ourselves, was, yeah, deeply rooted in God's word and wisdom. And yeah, I feel like we just scratched the surface with that conversation, but it's a fun one nonetheless.
Love it, Jack. Well, Jack, thanks so much for leading the conversation today. Guys, if you want to check out or get in contact with us, obviously our Calendly links are down at the bottom. I'd recommend going checking out the book, Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash. Highly recommend that book if this is something that you're just now getting into or looking at, or even if you are a infinite banker and it has been a little while since you actually read the actual Becoming Your Own Banker. It's never hurts to actually revisit that because it just is a good refresher for you. So,
Yep.
without further ado, we will call it a wrap. Thanks so much again, Jack, and we'll be back again some other time next week, maybe or whatever, to bring another video.
Thanks, guys.